The Declaration is a milestone in Indigenous peoples' rights and marks decades of lobbying by Indigenous peoples to have their rights recognised. It was adopted by the United Nations General Assembly on the 13th of September 2007, but was not endorsed by the New Zealand Government until 2010. Its core principles are self-determination and participation, and the Declaration's 46 articles provide detailed guidance on how these principles can be applied to respect and uphold Indigenous peoples' rights. The Declaration's preamble provides some background on why the Declaration was developed and outlines the principles that underpin it. It says that everyone has human rights. Indigenous peoples have not always been able to fully realise their human rights, and the Declaration offers assistance to states and Indigenous peoples so that Indigenous peoples can enjoy the same rights and freedoms other humans do. The Declaration can now take its place alongside New Zealand's founding document, the Treaty of Waitangi, which is the promise of two peoples to take the best possible care of each other. The treaty affirmed the rights tangata whenua had prior to 1840 and gave Tauiwi and the Crown a set of rights and responsibilities that enabled them to settle in Aotearoa. The purpose of this video resource is to raise awareness of the international human rights standards relating to Indigenous people and how these interact with the treaty, as well as to encourage engagement with the Declaration as a standard of achievement to be pursued in a spirit of partnership and mutual respect.
Tangata whenua, individually and collectively, have the right to all the human rights and freedoms recognised in international human rights law.
Tangata whenua are equal to all other peoples and have the right to be free from discrimination.
Tangata whenua have the right of self-determination. We determine our status and our development.
In exercising self-determination, tangata whenua have the right to govern our own affairs.
Tangata whenua have the right to maintain and strengthen our own institutions and also to participate fully in the state.
Every tangata whenua has the right to a nationality.
Tangata whenua, individually and collectively, have the right to life, freedom, peace and security as distinct peoples. We have the right to be free from genocide and other acts of violence and forcible removal of our tamariki from our whānau.
Tangata whenua have the right to be free from cultural destruction, including the taking of our lands and resources. The Crown shall prevent any actions that breach this right and provide remedies when they do happen.
Tangata whenua have the right to belong to our Indigenous nations and communities in accordance with our tikanga and kaua. We cannot be discriminated against because of this.
Tangata whenua shall not be removed from our land without our free, prior and informed consent, agreement on fair compensation and, where possible, the option to return.
Tangata whenua have the right to our culture. This includes the right to protect and develop aspects of our culture, such as sacred sites, ceremonies, technologies, and arts. The Crown shall provide restitution for cultural property taken without our free, prior and informed consent.
Tangata whenua have the right to our spiritual and religious traditions, customs and ceremonies. We have the right to our sacred sites, ceremonial objects and the remains of our ancestors. If the Crown has ceremonial objects or ancestral remains in their possession, they shall return these or enable whānau to access these.
Tangata whenua have the right to our histories, languages and our names for places and persons. The Crown
must protect this right and ensure tangata whenua can be understood in their protection of this right in courts and other institutions.
Tangata whenua have the right to control our own education system, to provide education in our language and in a manner appropriate to us. We also have the right to participate in the state education system without discrimination. The Crown will take effective measures to protect this right.
With tangata whenua, the Crown shall take effective measures, including education and public information, to combat prejudice and discrimination and promote good relations between tangata whenua and tauiwi.
Tangata whenua have the right to our own media in our own languages. We also have the right to access non-Indigenous media without discrimination. State and privately owned media should reflect Indigenous cultural diversity.
Tangata whenua have all rights under international and domestic labour laws, including non-discrimination and employment. The Crown shall protect Indigenous tamariki from economic exploitation and from dangerous or harmful work.
Tangata whenua have the right to participate in decisions that affect us through our own institutions and representatives.
The Crown must engage in good faith with tangata whenua to obtain our free, prior and informed consent before adopting laws and policies that affect us.
Tangata whenua have a right to subsistence and development based on our systems and institutions. Tangata whenua are entitled to fair redress when this right is breached.
Tangata whenua have the right to improvement in our economic and social conditions. The Crown must take effective measures to enable these improvements, especially for our kaumātua, wāhine, rangatahi, tamariki and tangata haua.
Particular attention shall be paid to the rights and special needs of kaumātua, pākeke, wāhine, rangatahi, tamariki and tangata haua. The Crown shall ensure that our wāhine and tamariki are protected from violence and discrimination.
Tangata whenua have the right to determine strategies and programs for our development and, as far as possible, deliver these programs through our own organisations.
Tangata whenua have the right to traditional medicines and health practices and to participate in all social and health services without discrimination. We also have the right to the highest standards of physical and mental health. The Crown shall take the necessary steps to achieve this right.
Tangata whenua have the right to maintain and strengthen our distinctive spiritual relationship with our land, waters and other resources.
Tangata whenua have the right to the lands and resources that we have traditionally held. We also have the right to own, use, develop and control the lands and other resources we possess. The Crown shall give legal recognition and protection to these lands and resources, giving due respect to our tikanga, kawa and customs.
The Crown shall work with tangata whenua to establish a fair process which gives due recognition to kawa and tikanga for dealing with our rights to lands and resources.
Tangata whenua have the right to redress for land and resources taken without our consent. This can include the return of land or resources, or, if that is not possible, just and fair compensation. The redress should be equal in quality and value to what was lost unless agreed otherwise.
Tangata whenua have the right to conservation and protection of the environment
and productive capacity of our lands and resources. The Crown shall provide assistance programs for this, and we believe hazardous materials are not to be stored on our lands without our free, prior, informed consent. The Crown shall also assist tangata whenua whose health have been affected by such materials.
Military activities shall not take place on tangata whenua lands without their consent unless justified in the public interest. The Crown must engage effectively with tangata whenua and their concerns.
Tangata whenua have the right to protect and develop our cultural and intellectual property, including traditional knowledge and cultural expressions. The Crown shall take effective measures to protect the exercise of this right.
Tangata whenua have the right to develop and use our lands, resources and territories. The Crown must obtain our free, prior and informed consent before allowing any activities affecting our lands, territories and resources, particularly activities to do with minerals and water. The Crown shall also provide just and fair redress for such activities and minimise any negative effects.
Tangata whenua have the right to determine our own identity and membership, and we have the right to decide upon our structures and membership. We also have the right to participate fully as citizens of Aotearoa.
Tangata whenua have the right to our own institutions, customs, traditions and laws in accordance with international human rights standards.
Tangata whenua have the right to decide the responsibilities of individuals to their communities.
Tangata whenua, although separated by international borders, have the right to maintain relations and undertake activities with others and other peoples. The Crown, in consultation with tangata whenua, shall ensure we are able to exercise that right.
Tangata whenua have the right to have our treaties and agreements with the Crown respected and enforced. The Declaration does not diminish or eliminate any rights contained in the treaties or agreements. Kia ora.
The Crown, in consultation with tangata whenua, shall take measures to give effect to this declaration, including through legislation.
Tangata whenua have the right to financial and technical assistance from states and through international cooperation for the enjoyment of the rights of the Declaration.
Tangata whenua have the right to fair procedures for resolving disputes.
The United Nations and other international organisations shall provide financial and technical assistance to give effect to this declaration, ensuring participation of tangata whenua on issues affecting us shall be established.
The United Nations and governments shall promote respect for this declaration and follow up to ensure it is effective.
This declaration contains minimum standards for the survival, dignity and well-being of tangata whenua and other Indigenous peoples.
The rights guaranteed in this declaration apply equally to wāine and tāne.
This declaration does not diminish other rights that tangata whenua have now or in the future.
Nothing in this declaration allows any actions that are contrary to the Charter of the United Nations which diminish the state's territorial integrity. The human rights and freedoms of all must be respected. Any limitations shall be non-discriminatory and strictly necessary for ensuring the respect for the rights of others. This declaration shall be interpreted in accordance with the principles of justice, democracy, respect for human rights, equality, non-discrimination, good governance, and good faith.